Welcome to the neighborhood, Mary.
It's nice to have some new blood on the block.
Hey guys, it's Byron here and welcome to Geek Legion of Doom. Today we are going to be taking a look at this year's new psychological horror film, The Ice Cream Truck, from Uncorked Entertainment and writer and director Megan Frears Johnston, so I hope you enjoy. First of all, let's kick this off with a quick plot summary. When Mary, wife and mother of 2 children, moves from city life in Seattle to her seemingly normal suburban hometown, she finds herself with several days by herself as she waits for her family to join her. Not used to spending this much time by herself, Mary quickly finds weird and wacky ways to kill the time as her past catches up on her. Discovering the town's deadly secrets, it soon becomes apparent that time isn't the only thing being killed, and for Mary, nostalgia isn't what it used to be. The Ice Cream Truck is actually the second film by Uncorked Entertainment that I've reviewed, the first one being Krampus Unleashed, which you can also find on this channel. Haha, shameless plug. Having had a fun time with that film, I had high hopes for The Ice Cream Truck as their Krampus movie had given me some very solid escapism. And when I sat down to watch The Ice Cream Truck, I had had a fairly tiring and stressful day, so escapism was just what I needed. But did the film deliver, or was it just a rocky road? Let's find out. Right from the get-go, The Ice Cream Truck impressed me with a stunning opening shot that tilted down from the sky to show rows of neat, near-symmetrical suburban houses. This fantastic showcase of great cinematography masterfully merges with a long droning sound, descending in pitch the lower down the angle becomes. And let me tell you that this is just one small example of how awesome the original electronic score by Michael Boateng is, which is very minimalistic, somewhat ambient, quiet and subdued. It enhances rather than intrudes, creating an old school and kind of nostalgic tone, thanks to the repeated yet varied motif of the famous folk song Turkey in the Straw, which plays whenever the Ice Cream Man appears. And this was extremely effective. This score is simply phenomenal. I honestly can't say enough good things about it, but what I want to know is, where can I buy it? Shut up and take my money! But seriously, Boateng, keep composing music. You are fantastic at what you do. Wow, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but let's take it back to how this aided the opening shot, which, if you can't tell already, I liked quite a bit. It immediately set the scene that the rest of the film would build up on, using this eerie and atmospheric tone to suggest one of the film's main themes, that crazy resides everywhere. As this first scene continues after the first shot, which I have probably described in way too much depth, we see many similar shots of more boring, dull-looking suburban houses. Off the bat, I took to these shots quite negatively, thinking they were overly repetitive and just wasting the runtime. Next, we are given a conversation between the protagonist Mary and her new neighbour Jessica, which seemed very odd. The acting was very unnatural, and I think the best word to describe it would be plastic. The dialogue lacked subtlety with very blatant exposition, but the more I watched, the more I realised that these so-called criticisms weren't really flaws at all. But why? Because they made me feel weird and bizarre. They made me question, and when I asked myself, why have these things been done the way they have, I saw the answer. This whole film pokes fun at American suburbia and the kind of people and lifestyles within them. The so-called repetitive shots I mentioned earlier, what they show is that how on a shallow, superficial level, places like this do seem dull, they do seem boring, and it puts that view on the audience so it can later subvert this view to surprise you and show you what really lies beneath the surface in places like this. Then there is the plastic acting and blatant dialogue. These things do the same thing. They made the area seem so fake, which not only made me think, but it also made me feel quite uncomfortable and fairly nauseous. The suspense was already building, and the film had only just begun. This film is mesmerising. I honestly felt like it cast a spell upon me, which not only kept me engaged until the credits rolled, but it enhanced my stressed and tired state I had going into the film. And I think if any horror film can make me feel this way, then it's doing its job. I will admit that this film does have a fairly slow pace, but thanks to the great atmosphere it built up, it makes wonderful use of it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Now, I just want to talk a bit more about this film's writing, in particular the protagonist Mary, who has a very interesting character arc. Mary is going through a midlife crisis. She seems fed up of adult life, unable to accomplish her job as a freelance writer, and without the daily distractions of her family present, all this and more becomes clear to her. Being back where she grew up shows this even further as she constantly fights her urges to be young again. Now, I don't want to say too much about how Mary's character arc develops, as I want to keep this review spoiler free, but what I will say is that it takes this very common feeling and issue that I'm sure a lot of people would be able to relate to its most messed up, wacky, yet somehow logical degree. In doing this, it delves into some pretty taboo and potentially uncomfortable subject matter, and while I can imagine this putting some people off, I love it. This film has balls. And let's be real, if you're watching this, you're presumably a horror fan yourself, so come on, you can take it. If you've ever seen Edgar Wright's The World's End, The Ice Cream Truck covers very similar territory in terms of its themes and subtext, which is very interesting to watch. The movie is also full to the brim with metaphors and foreshadowing, which is more than I expected from a film like this. And all of this is portrayed really, really well by Mary, who is an extremely likeable character. Despite some of the questionable decisions she makes throughout the film, I understood why she was making these choices, and regardless whether I agreed with her or not, I empathised with her. The actor who played Mary, Deanna Russo, did a fantastic job, and come to think of it, the acting from pretty much everyone is top-notch in this film. Other notable performances include John Redlinger playing Max and Emil Johnson playing the Ice Cream Man. Speaking of that final character I mentioned, I should probably go over this film's big gimmick, which is of course the fact that the antagonist is a murderous, serial-killing Ice Cream Man. This is a very fun concept which pushes the film into more slasher territory. And let's just say that there may or may not be various killings with several ice cream or dairy related apparatus. Above all though, I see the Ice Cream Man and his truck as a metaphor for the film's theme of yearning for one's youth. Now, I do have a criticism with the Ice Cream Man, which I'll get onto later, but I do think that thanks to his acting and his very mellow voice, he is a genuinely creepy character which was fun to watch. He had some very memorable dialogue too. Now, I know that I have been very positive of this film so far, and everything I've said pretty much matches my thoughts on the movie after my first viewing, but I must admit that after subsequent viewings, I did notice a pretty major flaw. And this negative primarily surrounds the writing. This is due to how the narrative gives us lots of information about various different characters and situations, yet only expands and develops upon the bare bone essential information that it needs to progress the plot. As a result, I found that there were lots of things left unanswered. For example, we are told that Mary is a freelance writer. Is this expanded upon? Nope. We are given a whole sequence surrounding a furniture delivery guy, but did this have any real bearing on the plot? Nope. We are given so many really, really interesting secondary characters. Are these people expanded upon? Hell no. And to explain my point here even further, let's go back to the Ice Cream Man, who you'd think would be the most developed character, seeing as the film is literally named after his vehicle. As you may have guessed by my tone of voice though, this isn't the case, as he is given no clear motivation or reason to do what he does during the film. Now, I know that The Ice Cream Truck isn't by any means the only horror film to have undeveloped antagonists, but it's still a negative in my eyes nonetheless. And it isn't even as such an issue with what's there, it's more of an issue with what isn't there, just giving me a feeling that there's an air of wasted potential. And this is just kind of frustrating. Using this example of the Ice Cream Man, I think they could have potentially done some really, really interesting things to mirror his situation with the situation of Mary. After all, with the information we are given, I actually think these two characters aren't too dissimilar. They both go to extreme measures to fulfill very childish urges, and while they go about these things in different ways, this could have been a really interesting dynamic. There are some elements of this in the film, but they are so minor that they're barely even noticeable without excessive overanalyzing, which I think I've probably done a lot of in this review. But as the film stands, I did enjoy the scenes with the Ice Cream Man in for the horror genre pleasures he provided. But I also think that the film would have still worked as a different genre if you took the Ice Cream Man out. It's almost like he was just put in to make the film more marketable. Like, don't get me wrong, he is relevant in terms of him being a metaphor for one of the film's major themes, as I mentioned earlier. And I've seen many other elements and characters in films that are way more forced than he is. I just feel like they could have gone the extra mile to make his place in the film fully worthwhile. But the greatest example of plot points being undeveloped is with the ending, which could have gone so many really interesting ways with some really interesting twists, but it just ended up being very formulaic and conventional in the end. It almost feels like they were originally planning to go a different route, hence why there are so many things built up but not given a payoff, but for whatever reason, it seems like they had to change it to something more generic. Like, this is all speculation, but that's how it feels to me. I really want to go over this ending in more detail to prove my point, but that would make this a spoiler review, so I can't do that. If you see the film though, you'll probably get what I mean. I guess the best way to describe these issues I've just stated is by comparing the structure of the Ice Cream Truck to the structure of that of a TV episode. By the end, the main plot is concluded, but there are lots of other various character arcs and other elements that aren't concluded. Now, this would be fine in something like a TV series, because there'd be more episodes that'd follow for these elements to be filled in. But with a movie, it's obviously different, because unless there's a sequel or sequels, these holes are generally left empty. And that is a damn shame. So, to conclude, did I enjoy the Ice Cream Truck? Yes. Actually, I enjoyed it a whole lot. Am I very frustrated with the Ice Cream Truck at the same time? Yes, very much so. Stylistically, the film is absolutely beautiful, with hundreds and thousands of small details that left me craving for more. Add a scoop of interesting themes and a really likeable protagonist to the mix, and you have a flavour combination that will leave anyone with a sweet tooth for horror salivating. However, what would have otherwise been a near-perfect psychological slasher flick is plagued with an aftertaste of wasted potential in various plot points. While I have been in negative on this film in some areas, I do want to make it clear that I would go as far as saying that I actually love the movie. I think I just love it so much that when I see all these other things it could have done, I'm a tiny bit annoyed it didn't do them. But As it stands, it's a great horror film. And none of these things would stop me from recommending this film to any horror fan who wants to sink their teeth into something really, really interesting. And I give this film a 7 out of 10. It is It meets Desperate Housewives. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to leave your thoughts on the movie or this review in the comments below. Let's get a really cool discussion going. And if you want to see more from this beautiful face, be sure to check out my own YouTube channel, Byron's Reviews, in which I do very similar things that I'm doing now. I review movies, primarily B movies, and occasionally video games. So if you want to check that out, the link is in the description. Right now I don't have a set upload schedule over there, but I really do hope to get one in place soon, and there is an update video on its way. That said, it's been great to be on Geek Legion of Doom, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!